So this is the book called Select Letters of Christopher Columbus with other original documents relating to his 4 voyages to the New World. Translated and edited by R.H. Major, FSA, etc., Keeper of the Department of Maps and Charts in the British Museum, and Honorable Secretary of the Royal Geographical Society. And again, in the book, Select Letters of Christopher Columbus with other original documents. This is a collection of the Holyoke Society in Columbus' own words here in his 3rd voyage. He says, "The Holy Scriptures record that our Lord made the earthly paradise and planted in it the tree of life, and then springs of a fountain from which the 4 principal rivers in the world take their source, namely the Ganges in India, the Tigris and Euphrates in his blank there, which rivers divide a chain of mountains and form in Mesopotamia, flow thence into Persia, and the Nile, which rises in Ethiopia and falls into the Sea of Alexandria." Columbus continues, "I do not find, nor have ever found, any account by the Romans or Greeks which fixes in a positive manner the site of the terrestrial paradise. Neither have I seen it given in any map of Mundi, any mappa mundi, laid down from authentic sources." So Columbus is saying, hey, nobody has really definitely said, hey, here is the Garden of Eden. It's right here, for sure. He's saying no Romans, no Greeks, and it's not on any mappa mundi map. People still don't know. All right. Some placed it in Ethiopia at the sources of the Nile. So which Ethiopia are we talking about? All right. Others traversing all these countries found neither the temperature nor the altitude of the sun correspond with their ideas respecting it, nor did it appear that the overwhelming waters of the deluge had been there. All right, again, Columbus is telling you that when you go to all those places that that they just mentioned is the Garden of Eden, right? Like the Ganges, Mesopotamia, and the Nile and all that. If you go to the places where they say they are today, like Columbus is saying, you're not gonna find it there. All right, it says, while you traverse these countries, you found neither temperature nor the altitude of the sun to correspond with their ideas respecting it, or the Garden of Eden, right? Nor did it appear that the overwhelming waters of the deluge had been there. There's no signs of the flood on that side. We got much accounts of the flood over here in America. Some pagans pretended to adduce arguments to establish that it was in the Fortunate Islands, now called the Canaries. Saint Isidore Bede Strabo and the master of scholastic history, with Saint Ambrose and Scotus, and all the learned theologians agreed that the earthly paradise is in the east, etc. Now, you've watched UB News YouTube channel. Much respect to the brother teaching us, giving us a clear perspective regarding the compass and how the east, didn't really mean east like how we think east means modern day, but we're talking about what it meant to the Hebrews was totally different, more like north or the past, right? And all this is just pointing to America. When you say the farthest east, if you keep going east, right, from Asia, where do you end up? The farthest east. That was always America, and that's the north, really. So Columbus is letting us know this, saying Isidore, Bede, Strabo, and the master of scholastic history, and with St. Ambrose and Scotus, all the learned theologians, right, agree that the earthly paradise is in the east, and that's America. I have already described my ideas concerning this hemisphere and its form, and I have no doubt that it could pass below the equinoctial line after reaching the highest point of which I have spoken. I should find a much milder temperature and a variation in the stars and in the water. Not that I suppose that elevated point to be navigable, nor even that there is water there. Indeed, I believe it is impossible to ascend thither, because I am convinced that it is the spot of the earthly paradise. Again, just for your reference, this is Columbus' 3rd voyage. He's in South America, terra firme. He had just passed Trinidad, the island of Trinidad, and he's in Orinoco. He's talking about the fresh water that comes out of the Orinoco, right? And this is where he's at, and he's letting us know that I believe it is impossible to ascend thither because I am convinced that it is the spot of the earthly paradise, whither no one can go but by God's permission. But this land which your highness have now sent me to explore is very extensive, and I think there are many other countries in the south of which the world has never had any knowledge. I do not suppose that the earthly paradise is in the form of a rugged mountain, as the descriptions of it have made it appear, but that it is on the summit of the spot, which I have described as being in the form of the stalk of a pear. The approach to it from a distance must be by a constant and gradual ascent. But I believe that, as I have already said, no one could ever reach the top. I think also that the water I have described may proceed from it, though it be far off, and that stopping at the place which I have just left, it forms this lake. So he's saying the water he's describing was the Orinoco River, and he's saying that the Orinoco River is coming from the earthly paradise, whatever that mountain or high place he's saying. And we know it's coming from Mount Roraima, an ancient tree stump. So in regards to the earthly paradise or the Garden of Eden, it says here in a book, Narrative and Critical History of America, edited by Justin Windsor from the Harvard University, Volume 2. It says, as he approached the coast, Columbus wrote, he heard in the dead of a night an awful roaring. So this is when he took his voyage over to the Tierra Firme, which they called South America, and when he reached the Orinoco River down in South America. And this is his description of what happened when he did. And it says, he saw the sea rolling from west to east like a mountain as high as the ship, and approaching little by little. On the top of this rolling sea came a mighty wave of roaring with a frightful noise. When he entered the gulf and he saw how it was filled by the flow of the great river, he believed that he had witnessed far out at the sea the mighty struggle at the meeting of fresh with salt water. The river, he was persuaded, must be rushing down from the summit of the earth, where the Lord had planted the earthly paradise. In this midst whereof was a fountain, whence flowed the four great rivers of the world, the Ganges, the Tigris, the Euphrates, and the Nile. He did not quite agree with those earlier philosophers who believed that the earth was a perfect sphere, but rather that it was like the form of a pear, which is very round except where the stalk grows, at which part it is most prominent. There are great indications of this being the terrestrial paradise, continues Columbus, for its site coincides with the opinion of the holy and wise theologians whom I have mentioned again. So not only did he find some kind of evidence to make him link the earthly paradise there, but he's also saying that it coincides with the opinion of the holy and wise theologians. All right, so they've always known it's not there, right? The mythical Hesperides, the Garden of Eden, the terrestrial paradise. We've always been talking about this side of the world over here. We're talking about American, right? And moreover, the other evidences agree with the supposition, for I have never either read or heard of fresh water coming in so large a quantity in close conjunction with the water of the sea. The idea is also corroborated by the blankness of the temperature. And if the water of which I speak does not proceed from the earthly paradise, it seems to be still greater wonder, for I do not believe that there is any river in the world so large or so deep. Again, in the book Select Letters of Christopher Columbus, with the original documents saved by the Halliox Society, Columbus continues when he's in his third voyage, and basically in the dragon's mouth is called a bay, in the Orinoco River, and how so much fresh water is coming out of it that it has to be coming from the terrestrial paradise, he says. And I think that if the river mentioned does not proceed from the terrestrial paradise, it comes from an immense tract of land situated in the south, of which no knowledge has been hitherto obtained. But the more I reason on the subject, the more satisfied I become that the terrestrial paradise is situated in the spot I have described, and I ground my opinion upon the arguments and authorities already quoted. May it please the Lord to grant your highness a long life and health and peace to follow out so noble an investigation. Alright, so Columbus is basically letting you know this has to be, the more he thinks about it, this has to be the terrestrial paradise. I mean, remember, this is his third voyage. You've seen all the times he came and what he was seeing in all these islands in the Caribbean and everything, the amount of food and the fruits and everything, how fertile it is, and now he gets here and it's just even more. And the climate is so pleasant and so much fresh water coming out of this river that it goes into the ocean, and there's fresh water in the ocean. That's how powerful the Orinoco is. It's coming from Mount Roraima. So called the Antediluvian World, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World by Ignatius Donnelly. He points out certain things that he wants to address or talk about. Point number 5, that it was the true antediluvian world. All right, so America / Atlantis, right, was the true antediluvian world. The Garden of Eden, there we go again, the Garden of Eden was in America. The Garden of the Hesperides, there you go, Hesperides.